Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Plus3 Futures and Commodities Show. We are recording here after the close on Friday, December 13th. My name's Ben Maldonado. As always, I'm here with my partner, Barry Hederachi. Barry, it's Friday the 13th.
Yeah, well, don't scare me anymore.
Well,
So-
that it's not scary that it's Friday the 13th. What's scary is it's about 11 days to Christmas.
There you go.
I can't believe it. My God. And the year's almost over.
I
Anyway,
know.
on today's show, we are going to do our pre-Fed meeting next week's show. We'll go over the major markets, find all the important levels, what's more likely than not to happen. We'll review a couple commodities and just sort of try and get us all prepared for what's going to prove to be the last sort of non-holiday week of the year next week.
Hmm.
So without any further delay, let's jump in and look at the SPX holding right on that half square.
Yeah, a little above the half square, but not much this week, right? We just kind of hung around, it's sort of quiet. It's
Really quiet.
almost that eerie feeling, before all the action starts, you have a little bit of a low volatility kind of period.
Right.
It feels like that.
Like in the movie Saving Private Ryan, when they're all sitting around joking and quiet and telling stories before the whole big onslaught in that town happened. That's what it feels like. I just watched that movie again the other day.
Well, you might not be too far off here. Let's see.
Right.
Let's see. Yeah, let's see how this works out today. Let's look at everything. Look at all the indices. Well, we'll start with the cash here. And we last week we left off with the 60/20 being the level to watch. That we were looking to see if we could trade below or hold above, and that was sort of the key we were going off of. And this is the reason I was kind of watching this week and not looking at the short side so much because we were doing well above 60/20 and holding above that. But it's not
Mhm.
holding above with a lot of let's just say
Gusto.
yeah, that's
I
a
mean, it's not pulling away. That's the thing, right? It's kind of looks like it's kind of Velcroed to it.
yeah, it looks a little shaky. I guess that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah,
It's holding above, but not very not in a strong way.
right.
But nonetheless, it's holding above. Fair enough, I've looked at a bunch of cycles and a bunch of squares. We don't, usually we don't have time to cover everything on the show. So what I do is to pull out our regular set and look at that regular chart set. But I'll also look at other things, and if my eye catches something, I'll bring it up during the
Sure,
show.
sure.
So here, yeah, we're holding above, but the thing is, we could all sometimes when the market gets too frothy, it would get up above a level like this and hold it. So the
Hmm.
key thing, what has to happen next week is we really have to move higher.
Hmm.
Anything longer, there's clearly we're not next Friday when we talk, we're not going to be here,
Right.
right? So we're going to move away one way or the other. So, but the key for the cash, if you guys are watching the daily chart, 60/20 is the level to watch. So we'll go with that, and we'll look at some of the other ones to see what's happening. So here's the futures chart. This is the
That's the
ES
December, yeah, December
December
contract.
contract,
Hmm.
and anytime there's a high being made, I like to look back and see what kind of counts we get. And here, sure enough, the August low is 90 trading
Hmm.
days away, and we
Hmm.
did go up into that very beautiful, very nicely,
Hmm.
and we're in about a quarter of a square, and that is a squaring out of sorts. So we're watching that, and the thing is, as soon as we hit that, market acted like we hit a wall. It just kind of dropped down and just really didn't do much.
Right.
You know what I mean? And if we were in like a strong bull market, say, we would normally, we would bang up against it and somehow get on top of the quarter square and you know hold there or start moving, and we didn't. And we did. We know the 90 count is there, so this is something really important to watch
Hmm.
and to keep in mind. Keep in mind for what? Well, keep in mind for possibly rolling over
Yeah,
because we're in that kind of a place. We're in a place where we can obviously we have the Christmas coming up, end of the year. We could potentially have an end of the year rally. Sure, fine, we account for that, but we can't ignore the technical side. When things are squaring out. So we got to remember this, and
hmm
we'll talk about how to deal with the way we deal with these squares and cycles is is on a day-to-day basis. So, if you guys follow us on X, that's great because I post every day and Ben posts several times a day, up to date
Hmm.
on his hourly charts and squares and whatever's happening, in the moment. So if you guys want to follow us there, the information in the description. The other thing I wanted to look at was this ABCD. We didn't quite get to it, and we might not get to it.
Hmm.
But again, we have a chart where we're sitting on top of a 50% of a square, just barely here. This is the continuation chart for the E-mini. Is
Hmm.
it a good spot? Sure. As long as we're above, it's a strong place to be. So what you want to watch is the 60-26. The 60-40 is 60-40 is really the level to watch for next week because we're sitting right on top of it. We can treat these 50% squares breaking out of one almost like breaking a normal breakout. We have a
Hmm.
breakout in the market, and then what happens is the price will come back and recheck it. So this could be a breakout retest before we go, and maybe we'll make the ABCD. But if you break out and fail the retest, I mean, that's why it's a test, right? Either you pass the test or you don't.
Right.
You somehow get below 60-40 and get stuck. Uh, this is something to keep in mind because we did do a 90-day cycle up, and there's some other things that are hitting about midweek next week. And we have Fed next week, right? Middle of Wednesday,
Tuesday, Wednesday. Yep.
Tuesday, Wednesday. So we got to really watch it because we came into a 90, it's looking weak. And there is that 90 that we looked at. And we're sitting perfectly on these 50% levels. You guys saw the cash chart, we're
Cash.
sitting
Hmm.
right on top of it. Futures chart, we're sitting right on top of it. So these are places either we can move hard in the other direction or in the same direction. So you got to watch this. That's why watch the futures 60-40. We want to be above that. And if we stay above that, manage to, I mean, now right? That's the level we don't want to get stuck below, for example.
Hmm.
And so for next week, watch this 60-40. If we get stuck below somehow and weakness comes in, we could really, really drop because we've been skipping out on a lot of cycles to get here. There were a lot of bigger cycles that would have turned down normal markets,
Hmm.
here just because of, I guess it's just the cash flow coming in, right? Capital flow is coming in. It's able to keep the market up and whatever else that's happening.
And what's your key cash number? It's 60, what, 26, you said, I think?
60-20.
60-20. Yeah.
Yeah. So watch those two numbers, and I think between them we can sort of figure out what's happening.
Hmm.
And this is the main cycle we're watching. This 90s, obviously, it's in the other charts too. So
Hmm.
that's that. Now let's take a quick look at the weekly, like we normally do.
Oh, look at that cycle.
Yeah. So this is from the 2020 low,
Hmm.
and we're squaring out, and we have an ABCD up here.
Hmm.
I was really thinking of this one. If you want to make this sort of grand slam kind of a high, why am I talking high? Well, probably because of this run up we've had.
Hmm.
It's sort of an extended leg. Aren't we making some kind of records on this leg? I think so, right?
Yeah.
We had a bunch of other than new highs. And the thing is, the first cycle ran 90 weeks, which worked out pretty well. And that's 2020 to the 2022 high up here.
Hmm.
And you can see we mess around at the 50% level, and eventually a couple of weeks later, a couple of bars later, really, we rolled over and corrected for 45 weeks.
Hmm.
So now we're on the way up. So I'm kind of looking at both. We missed the 90 by a little bit, but this 50% could be the trigger here. So you want
Yeah.
to really watch that.
And
And
you got a reaction at the 90, that little plunge down into August, I guess it was that August 5th low at that 90 right there.
you mean here, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
right there.
yeah, it did. And it
Hmm.
was a decent correction. We were
Yeah,
talking about that, right? That
yeah.
that came in.
Yep.
And this is that lower high. Even that gave us a little bit of a thing, but the 50% here held it.
Hmm.
And then spent about 3 weeks, 4 weeks here struggling. Eventually got on top, and now we're really up against this other 50% of the square.
Hmm.
Now that high is, well, it's 61.61. How about
Hmm.
that?
Hmm. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Well, 61.66. Let's go with
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
And I like those numbers. So okay, this is the upside potential here, but cycles can. This is like they say, this is close enough a government business.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
we're in there.
You're
We have the
in the
ABCD
neighborhood.
plus we have the squares. Now this is a weekly. That's why I'm spending a little time on this, and it's coming from none other than the 2020 low, and it's coming from the 2022 low. So they're all, we have references from. Get this. Look at this, Ben. We have a reference from the 2022 low. We
Hmm.
have the 2022 high and the 2020 low, right? So 3 points are coming
That's
together.
really good.
Yeah, there's a relationship to this high. The thing is, the exact 50% of the square is in December 21st. So there you go. That's
Close.
so this is why, maybe this is why, you felt you had some squares and things showing up, and this is
Yeah.
the strongest thing I've seen, and it's not coming without anything, right? It is coming with a lot of historical references, and the square looks pretty solid. And so we'll see what happens, but this is something to keep in mind. Upside 61.66, and you guys know the daily levels that we talked about. So if those daily levels get triggered, then you really want to start watching it.
And
If the daily
Barry,
levels hold, then we're good. Maybe we'll go up to 61. So,
yeah, this think of this too. You have this we have this significant geometry and the significant cycles, and almost everybody's convinced that we're getting the Santa Claus rally and we're going to scream up through the holidays.
mhm.
It's a really interesting juxtaposition of these two positions, right? Because they could not be more polar opposite.
We don't have time to get into it, but it's really interesting time, not just cycle wise, sentiment wise. I mean, there's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes.
Hmm.
Um, and to the upside, I remember putting up to 64,000, 6,400, and the little buffer zone up here, thinking we might get up to 270 degrees up from that low.
Hmm.
And that's a possibility. I mean, that would be, it would blow my mind if we get there before the end of the month. And
Yeah,
in one sense, it'll be great. It's easy trading.
right.
Another sense, you know, that would really be a high, right? Like I would call
Hmm.
that out before we even got there. Now here, because it's not quite the full square, and some of the highs coming on these sneaky levels, it's not exactly a full square. Like here, you could think we would get up to the 180,
Right.
but it didn't. And you can see, even here, we didn't hit it to the date. We had to spend almost a month around here
Yep.
till we turned down, and we hung with it. I remember, I mean, we got this high and
Yep.
got it all the way down to the low, but it's just how they come in. So, and here it was a little bit late, a couple of bars late, so we could be a couple of bars early.
Hmm.
These are just to keep in mind. As you guys can see, these don't, one of these critical points come about every 22 weeks. So it's not that many that you get
Right.
per year, right? Um, so because of that, we want to watch this because of how we came into that time and price, all of that. That's why we're talking about it. So this is really more of evidence than anything else. But I just wanted to make sure you guys saw that. Anything you
Good.
want to add to this, Ben?
No, no, it's good stuff.
Yeah, it's good. And this is the oh, this is interesting. I was looking at this just this morning. Well, ABCD we looked at earlier, but I did that. Somebody mentioned the square of the low or in square of the high and range and all of that.
Square the range. Yeah, someone was mentioned
Um,
that. Yeah.
and I, my basic thing was, look, we don't have time to look at all the different things, and so we just, we can look at it, but comment on things based on a known set of charts, so everybody can
Hmm.
kind of follow along every week.
Hmm.
But here I took the square of the low, which was 666 and some change, right?
Yes, that's correct.
So I just kept it at 666, and we're up exactly half a square, and but up above by a little bit. So
Hmm.
I'm guessing that's that change. If you put the change in there, it's probably very close to the high.
Yeah, that's true.
667. I mean, let's just move it up one just to make up, round it up. You can see
Hmm.
that worked, right? That lined up with the other square that we got from the
Yeah,
2020
timing
beginning
wise,
there.
it sure did.
That worked out. So here we don't have time. We're working with price, and we're just around that 50% of the level. So that 50% ends up being,
Then around 6,000.
yeah, 6,003.
Hmm.
So I mean, just to keep in mind. So a lot of things, I mean, this is all the way back from 2009. So, but it's worth knowing where these things are.
Yeah,
And that's all I got for the weeklies. I just wanted to, touch main focus was this, the 61, 66 up here and the price and time that's coming up, which is really like plus or minus 1 bar. So we're basically there.
we're there. Yep.
Yeah. And we want to watch that. So the idea being this is actually below the square already. And the other ones are, the dailies you can see they've been pushed a little above and they're holding right above. So if it slips 60-20, then we have to really start watching it because that could put in that 90-day
Hmm.
high. Not to mention the weekly ones we just looked at. So all of that could kick in all of a sudden when nobody's looking. And so somebody should be looking, and that's what we're doing.
That's right.
you know. All right. Oh, the Dow. Hold on. I wanted to look at so the Dow, what happened was, we had the zone here. I had marked out 44,300 and we had a 50% of the square right around 44,000, what, 898, somewhere in there.
Hmm.
And this is how price should behave if a level is really strong. We ran up there in ABCD and really spent not quite above, but not quite below, right? We kind of kept
Kind of
testing
like the
that.
S&P.
Yeah, yeah, kind of like that. And maybe Dow's leading, it was lagging
Yeah,
coming up in here,
maybe
remember?
maybe it's leading. Yep.
But that's quite a bit of a correction compared to the bigger indices. If you
Hmm.
if you just look at what happened the last couple of weeks, what do you think? It's a
No,
big
it's,
difference, right?
I mean, it looks like 7 or 8 or 9 days in a row down.
Exactly. So, and that, I mean, we have some other counts coming in here. We have the 90. Um, so this looks like the 90 hit it, and we have price. So what's interesting is the Dow is not holding up above. It really kind of took a dive, and the correction seems to be very strong. So we want to see if we can hold above at least a quarter level. That's 43,723. That's a
Hmm.
quarter level here. Anyway, just to show you that the reason I wanted to pull this up was just to show that how, the Dow actually could have gotten traction on the cycle, on the 90 cycle and turned down because this is kind of what you'd want to see. Not that every market has to do it. Some of them will wait till the very last minute and drop, and some not. But this is the thing that caught my eye. When we look at the Nasdaq, we can look at what you have for that and what it's been, the price action looks like. But I wanted to bring this up to say that, there is some reason to sort of look ahead a little bit with some caution, right? Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's move on to bonds.
This is where I think a lot of tells are coming these days.
hmm
Like, I mean, look at that. Look at this week in bonds.
Yeah. Well, it was a good week in bonds, is what I say.
Hmm.
And what did it come off of? It came off the 119.5. We talked about how, last week we talked about this trend line and how we're going to come from below and kiss it, how that pattern works
Yeah.
out.
Yep.
And also how, the maximum reach, if we get up into the 122 level, it'll still be bearish, but it'll be a bigger push getting up into that. But this 119 couldn't really hold above the 119.5. And well, this is what happened. We rolled over. And when
Hmm.
this square happened, we talked about all of this. We talked about how, up here we had a lot of cycles hit at the high, and this ended up becoming a false break. And we had a really nice 45 by 45 time and price came into balance, corrected, and now we're continuing. And the scary part is if it blows through all of this, we have a long way to go.
Yeah, that's the thing.
So let's see. I mean, my question here is this part was good. Bonds dropped nicely. The question now is, are we going to consolidate or sort of mean revert around here or just stabilize at the 45 around the 116 level? Or, if we take these out, we're definitely going to check on this low. So that's in the books, right? So
Hmm.
113, you want to watch that, maybe 112, do a false break here. So I think that's the next level to watch if we slip through the 45-degree level. So I'll call that it's 116.09. Okay. And
And
so
we
just give it,
closed at 116.10,
well, we closed right. I mean, yeah, 0910. I mean, I got my
right on it.
I could be off a
Yeah.
little bit, but it closed
Yeah.
right on the line,
Yeah.
which is like the big joke for us every Friday, right? How these
Yeah.
things close on the square levels.
Hmm.
Sure enough. So we can go by 116.10, but give or take a couple of few ticks here, 3 ticks plus or minus. And the key is we don't want to take out these lows, you know, and that would be like 115, yeah, 115.10, let's say. Just
Hmm.
as long as we are above here, we can consider that to be consolidating here before going lower versus
Yeah.
going lower right away.
Yeah.
But either way, it's lower, it's just a matter of when. It's
It's heavy for sure.
it's heavy. So that's my take. Um, yeah. I mean, the other flip around on that is we had a square, we ran. Here's the first pullback. Yeah, and are we going to hold higher and a 1, 2, and a 3, right? And that would take us to the 50% level
Right.
and then roll over. But either way, as you guys can tell, we're bearish on the bonds.
And we'll get a lot of good information next week how this thing trades at that 45.
Yeah, good point. Yes, that's a good, really good point.
Hmm.
So that's what's happening with bonds. Let's take a look at the weekly. Not as exciting, but you can see that kiss from below a lot clearer here because I covered these lines a couple of weeks ago before all of this. As we got the low, we talked about how the bonds could get up there and rally and tap it and drop because it happened here, right? It happened here. So it was an easy pattern to sell. And it happened again. So there you are, right?
Hmm.
So that's a done deal. And I would consider, 114 is really the big level basis, the weekly,
Hmm.
with the weekly square on it. And we'll see if we get there. Looks like we will, at least to come and tap this downtrend line or something close to it. So we'll see how
Hmm.
that works out. But for now, that's sort of the target. Anything you want to add, Ben?
Just they look weak, and if bonds are weak, stuff's going to start breaking.
Yeah, and this is the thing, right? We have these big cycles at highs, and then bonds are acting kind of wobbly. Um, Wobbly meaning not just wobbly, but if this 114 level goes, we could really have some trouble, right?
Yeah, it could be the next leg down. Take out
Hmm.
those lows from, September, October 23.
Yeah, and I don't even want to put the ABCD off of here,
Right. That takes you
right?
way down. Yeah,
So
that gets you probably to par, near par.
yeah, you want me to put it on? You want to see
Yeah.
the first to call this out
Not quite, but down at the lows.
down at the lows, and if we get this close, we're definitely going to check this low and probably
Hmm.
test this out. And that's
Hmm.
going to be, and we're not going to do double bottom. So
Yeah, let's
it's going to
see.
be very messy and profitable. So,
Mhm. Yeah.
so watch this. Yeah, that's pretty much it for bonds.
Hmm.
Looking at crude, well, sure enough, we talked about consolidating and making higher lows and we started moving higher. We broke the little triangle we drew in last week. So we could still certainly be, trapped within these two levels, the 64 level and the 7350, which we've been working with forever, it feels like. And so for now, that's what's happening. When we get up to the upper band, we'll have to see how it's behaving. I mean, the basic premise here is, if we get above 7350, then we kind of get primed for much higher prices.
Yeah.
And so, and we're looking at, we looked at the weekly. When we look at the weekly, we'll see how long we've been putting these lows in. So it's about waiting for the break, and knowing that
Hmm.
there's plenty of trading left in this, not left, plenty of trading starting to show up in
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
So here's the weekly. Now you know why we're being so patient because that's gonna at some point break to the upside and fly. So I don't care what the news is saying, but this is really, really, really important. We did run at 60 by 240 here, right? See
Hmm.
that?
Hmm.
And as soon as we hit that, we turned up. So we're just watching. I'm really watching every bar to see, try to find the earliest sort of the confirmation. And you're going to look at crude too, right? Today? Are you looking at crude?
I'll show the monthly just to show how the circle continues to contain it.
Okay. Oh, speaking of the long term, so here's the that
Oh, there's the
weekly,
circle. Yeah.
and the circle's kind of getting taken out at this point. This is a
Hmm.
little bit too sloppy for my taste. But what's not getting taken out is this little triangle we have going.
No,
And for that, we have a little bit more time to, get a little bit more time to go compress. But you can see the coiling is getting ridiculous at this point.
it's tight.
You know, if you look at the
Hmm.
past, how we've been sort of oscillating within that. And so, wait for the break of that. That should be well worth the patience.
That's right. Good move out of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I was looking at gold today.
Yeah.
And look,
Gold.
it seems like it's still correcting and maybe doing an ABCD down, you know?
Mm-hmm. And well, I mean, basically, we called out the high and we corrected a full square 60 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have to just kind of wait to see what happens next. The first two things happened, right?
Yep.
Market stopped at the square that we looked at the other day. Weekly, we had a square up here. It stalled, corrected. Basically, we got an ABCD up, right?
Mm-hmm.
ABCD.
Yeah.
Now is the moment of truth. What happens? Can we get above the 50%, hold above? Or if you go down, my bet is, we're probably going to consolidate for a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
And let's take a quick look at the weekly.
Yeah, that 144 is good because that was basically this week, basically kissed it from the underside.
Yeah, it's solid. And
Mm-hmm.
we, yet, we still have a lower high here. So let's see how we do this. Either we're going to correct down to the 50% or we're going to consolidate.
Mm-hmm.
And so far, it looks like a consolidation, and we're just waiting for that to clear up. The runs were good,
Yeah, we
and
had we had good squares at the high, and this is a very bullish consolidation if it stays in this kind of range.
yeah, I think it looks very healthy. It's fine. Gold is doing
Hmm.
okay. We're just waiting for it to sort of finish finish what it's doing
Yeah.
because I don't really want to trade consolidations. All right, getting into copper. Speaking of consolidations, right?
Yeah. Look at that.
So not much to add to this. We've been talking about we covered copper a little bit more last week. Basically, the lows are holding long as we're above the 60-degree line. 405 was it?
Something like that.
405, 407. We're in good
Hmm.
shape and let the market work itself out. So long as we're above this 405 level, um, copper's, let's just say it's on firm grounds.
Exactly.
And looking at the weekly, it's holding the trend line, kind of crisscrossing the 144 back and forth. Um, and it's starting to form a triangle.
Hmm.
And we just have to wait. That's why we're not really talking about it one way or the other. There's not much to do here. Let copper work itself out. It's taking.
And this is the same case with a lot of the commodities that I'll talk about when my segment happens. The commodities,
Okay.
very similar.
Yeah. And they have to do that, right? Once in a while.
Yeah.
They just have to
They do it most of the time, right? We
yeah.
get we get the
Exactly.
trending about 20% of the time. So
Hmm.
when they trend, you got to get on them.
Yeah. And speaking of trending, the dollar's been trending really well. We went up to 60 degrees. We went up to the and did a false break, corrected, held at the 1/3. Now we're going for the question is, are we going for a lower high here?
Hmm.
Or are we going to really flush a square 60 by 60, or are we going to get above? Either way, the dollar's very bullish. And you can see I've had if you guys follow the dollar segment, we had this 107 and a quarter on the chart. You can see today the high was right there. We went up and tapped it. So it seems like kind of like bonds. I feel like there's a potential to consolidate here if we don't really take this out. And that could be what's happening for a little bit here. So not
Hmm.
much to do. I think the run was good. We want to watch it between this 107 number and let's say 107.80, 107.90. You want to watch that because that's, we could turn. That's basically upper band so far. And if we consolidate, it'll be within that range. And yeah, that's what I have for the dollar.
Hmm.
And if you look at the weekly went right up into the 1/3, 2/3 of the square, consolidating. Correction was very shallow on the weekly in comparison. So, and the fact that he's holding most of the time, it's held about the 50% is bullish. So even if it consolidates, as long as it's doing it above the 50% of the weekly square, I think we're in good shape. So you can call that 106.15 would be the
Hmm.
50% of the square. Anything you want to add? Talk about the dollar? Anything you want to add?
Not on the dollar.
Yeah.
Let's look at Hong Kong. That had a big week, didn't it? Oh, you got to do the euro first.
Yeah. Take a quick look at the euro. It's pretty much what we thought. We ran up into the quarter square. Actually, I added the square after eyeballing it last week, which was right there.
Mm.
And we were expecting it to halt there and trade lower, which it did. And I think pretty much like the dollar, either we're going to consolidate between that quarter square and the full 90, or we're going to drop. So consolidation or drop, meaning a drop would have to take out the 90, and that would be around 0.39293 right
Sure
there.
looks like it's headed there, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, it's going to go there. It's just
Right,
it's just a matter of, would it be next week? I don't know, but at least the test would be good.
right.
Um, the thing is, we did get the false break here, but the, the sort of the spike out of there, the move out of there wasn't that strong. So it just seems like it's still weak.
It went right into resistance and
Yeah,
failed. So,
and failed perfectly. So
yep.
let's take a quick look at the weekly.
Hmm.
So there we are. Now the weekly looks a lot more dangerous because we went through the square, which it's a sort of a sign of weakness versus
Hmm.
holding it a little bit above it or even leaving some air above it.
Hmm.
So this time if we get through that, I'm afraid it's going to start a whole nother leg.
Yep.
That's just what it looks like basis the weekly, which is long term. I mean, just to get to the 50% of the square, the middle of end of the first quarter of next year. So we have time. And anyway, so we've consolidated enough here, and it looks like we're about to make the next move. But let's watch. Let's wait and see. Yeah, that's enough. You want? Is there anything to add? Or
No, it looks weak.
yeah,
It's a better sell right now. It looks like.
yeah, and especially when it gets below that 50% level,
Yep.
we'll get something to bite into. All right, let's take a quick look at the Hang Seng.
There's that rip.
Yep. So, I mean, basically, whatever it's doing, we came down to the support level and we got a nice move off of there. So now it's really a matter of, where is this pullback going to hold? If we can hold above
Hmm.
this 19,450, obviously the higher we hold, the better. And if we
Hmm.
can get above this 20,380, I would say, the market's given a very strong position. But if it's really, really bullish and we're going to snap out of here, this 19,800 level is sort of where we want to hold above, because that's just structural support there.
Hmm.
And give or take a couple of points right about there where I'm pointing, the crosshair is. If we can hold above that, we're in good shape. A little bit below, all right, fine, but getting below 19,450 right now could almost mean like we're doing a downtrend. We could get into that kind of a mode if slip passes now. So we can't really afford to do that if you're bullish. Keep that in mind, right?
Sure.
Yep. And that's pretty much it. That's all I got. And you're going to
Okay.
cover natural gas, so I don't have
Yep.
to,
I'll talk about natural gas.
which is really doing well. After the lows came in, it actually right on the half square. Remember
Yeah, it's holding up very nicely.
back in the day. Yep.
Hmm.
So all right, so that's it. Let me put it on to you, and you're going to cover what the Nasdaq, Bitcoin.
Nasdaq, Bitcoin, and then we'll do an update on coffee and natural gas and take a quick look at the monthlies on gold and crude.
Sounds good. And if you guys like our work, please remember to like, subscribe, and hit the alerts.
Hmm.
There we go. Above the square now. Just
Yeah,
hold.
the laggard has caught up. I mean, if you remember, the Dow and the ES S&P had made highs, and this thing was still, screwing around down here.
Right.
And now we've pushed up, and it's kind of leading. Um, we just watching this 21,675 on the daily. You can see today We cleared it today, so
Hmm.
Sunday, Monday is going to be really important. Do we stay above this? Because then we're heading to 22,500. If we can't, if we lose it here, then and start rolling over, we'll know because we'll be under this 21,675.
Right. So today,
Oh,
actually, today's low is kind of important.
super important. Yep, because it's right on that half square.
Mhm.
So we'll see. I mean, it's the same thing. We've got the 90-day count. So uh, in 108 high to high here. So there's good timing here. Now we just have to watch price and see, do the cycles and does the timing, kick it the opposite direction.
Mhm.
Let's jump over to the weekly. Similar picture, right? We have a weekly up bar. We're above 21,082. As long as we're there weekly basis, we're in good shape. The thing that you'll notice is we do have timing here,
Yeah.
and that's off that 2020 low,
Hmm. Hmm.
using the square of 45. We've got one, two, three, four, 5.5 squares
Yep.
in time
Hmm.
and one, 2.5 up in price, a
Yep.
little plus an eighth.
Hmm.
But there is timing there. And, we'll see if that timing has any merit. You know, this week's low is going to be important because that can give us a reversal,
Hmm.
weekly reversal. So this week's low, which is what is that? 21,352. You want to watch this week's low. If we
Yep.
take that out next week and then can get below this 2182, that's going to be significant.
Hmm.
So that's one of the key things with the NQs that I'm going to be watching this coming week is how does it handle these? Does it handle the low from this week, and can we push higher through this time zone? Anything to add here on the weekly or the daily?
No, we're good. I mean, we talked about the Dow, how it's leading down, and here's Nasdaq sort of coming in, pushing higher.
Yeah, it was lagging as we know. We
Mhm.
discussed, it was lagging the other two, and now it's leading and pulling them. Let's see how much it can pull. Here's a look at the monthly. Similar thing. You can see somewhere around this 21,000, 20,900 is really critical because you got 20,878 here. Your weekly is 21,000
Hmm.
and your daily is 21,675.
Right.
So right in there, we have really, really important levels that if we can stay on top of them, we could continue to run. But if we turn and get below them, that will spell that something has changed.
Hmm.
So we've got to watch those pretty closely. And it's about 1,000 points, right? 20,800 to 21,675.
Yeah.
So 700-800 points in there, or 2 days in the Nasdaq. the way it trades.
Hmm.
So, anything else you want to add here before we go look at Bitcoin?
No, we're good. I mean, we talked about the timing, which takes care of all the market, all the indices, and we know where the price levels are. And next week we know is really critical. So let's take all that with us.
Yeah, now it's just watching price. How does price interact and react with these lines? Because that's
Hmm.
key.
Yep.
That's the big clue for us. All right, let's jump over to Bitcoin. So the main thing to notice here is the correction is holding. First the biggest dip came down to this 91, the half square held, and then we battled here on this full square around 96.6, and now we're pushing up to the half square here at 102. So we're seeing um, choppy action here, which is very different than this move, right?
Yeah.
That to me, that's the most noticeable thing is that we've stopped moving like this, and now we're violently moving up and down, still making progress, right? And if this is the correction right here, that's really bullish.
Hmm.
Because as we talked about, we could come all the way down to here and still be bullish.
Right.
So I think longer term, this is very, very bullish. And, let's watch these levels to see, okay, are we going to keep correcting? Or are we going to push? If we sit on top of 102, we're going to push.
Hmm.
The odds favor we're going to push higher and we're going to get up into this, 108, 108,000 level. That would be the
But
next one on the daily.
I was going to say that doesn't that look like three drives to a top, that pattern?
Yeah, you could call it one, two, three. You
Mm-hmm.
got you got three there. And this is a 1 by 2, so you can see it's pretty steep. I'm sorry, 2 by 1.
Hmm.
This is 2 by 1.
Yeah,
So
very steep.
it's pretty steep, but it's holding it so far. I mean, if we crack that, then maybe we're gonna like, bounce around and consolidate some more. But for now, I don't think there's anything bearish about it.
Hmm.
I'll show you the weekly just to show you we got a nice timing cycle that came in here.
Yeah.
And this was off of the October 22 low.
Hmm.
We have 1.5 squares in time, 2.5 in price, basically, a little short of it, but 2.5 in price. So that's a good square.
And that's
That
really good.
Yeah, no,
We have
timing
price and
wise,
practically
yeah,
we have price and time
yeah,
because that
it's
space is gap is less than an eighth of a, it's about 1/16th of a square
yes.
at the high. Yeah.
So it's really good timing. The question is, what are we going to get, right? Are we going to get another? Is the correction going to be like this?
Hmm.
Because this was a big, 7, 8 month correction, but it was completely bullish. And if we just chop around here in this half square, that'll be really bullish as well. As I said, we could even pull back and sit on top of this and have it be super bullish.
I'm thinking,
But
yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say that it's just that timing um, is, it's important to notice, right?
Well,
And we've already seen the change, right? We were vertical into it, and now we're inside bar.
well, not only that, I mean, I just noticed on your square, we have equal moves. There should be a
Yes.
nice ABCD up there. And I would call a high. You don't have to, I will. It's like,
Let's see.
it's pretty much
Yeah,
dead
it's pretty
on.
much pretty much there.
Almost. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, just a little shy.
But wow, that with 108 weeks,
Yeah.
that's not bad.
No, it's not bad. The timing was really interesting to me, you
Hmm.
know, on this weekly.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and then let's jump to the monthly. Monthly,
And that weekly, just really quick, that weekly had an inside bar. So watch
that's
next
why I
week.
said, yeah, this is inside.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
So we've definitely, the timing did give us a change, right? Because we were vertical into it and now we're inside bar.
Hmm.
So there's a little there was a change there. We don't know how this is going to evolve yet. We need more information. Your monthly, we had this beautiful circle that was working. It
Hmm.
busted through, and now look, as you can see, the low so far this month is sitting right on top of the half square, which would be bullish.
Yep.
If we do another correction like this, that basically sat on top of these highs, if we just sit in here, that would be really, really bullish.
Hmm.
So we'll see how it plays out. Now we did have some timing there, like low to high 90. That's pretty damn good. 90 months.
Yeah.
We were off
Really
by
good.
what?
Really
Off
good.
off by a month.
Hmm.
So I mean that's again, you look at the bigger time frames for the bigger cycles and say, okay, where are we there? You're not trading off a monthly chart, but you want to be aware of those timing aspects because they can and do affect price dramatically.
Right. Yeah.
So that's Bitcoin. Let's talk about commodities. Most of them, including the grains, the softs, metals, energy, they're all kind of consolidating. I was looking at the three grains. Corn is the only one that looks like it's trying to go, but it's still caught in that, below a half square that I want to see it get above. Once it gets above that, I think it's going to be up and out. Wheat and soybeans are sideways. Sugar is correcting. Cotton continues, the multi-month sideways. Cocoa is interesting in that we're pushing up towards the spike high, after
Hmm.
this big sort of wave four like correction. So I'm really watching that one closely to see if, we're going to get a wave five that takes us out and sort of puts another leg up, or are we
Mhm.
just going to go up, poke and make a false, poke a new high, make a false break and set up a what would be a really, really good short. So that's that. Let's look at coffee because coffee is one that we've been tracking. So let me find it. There's coffee.
Mhm.
So the the thing about coffee is we did a 144 by 144 square from this low here
Mhm.
to this high here. So that sort of ended this wave and we got this sharp pullback and then we immediately, pushed up really hard
Mhm.
and now we're pulling back. So this to me has all the earmarks of a false break here, right here.
Mhm.
This high here.
Yeah.
And so does that mean we're going to crash? No. Does it mean we're going to correct? Probably. Because we remember we were making highs, pulled back sharply, now we pushed up again and we couldn't hold those highs. And now we're back below this full square at 327 and change.
Mhm.
So I think something finished up here. We're going to get some sort of correction. The shape and the character of this correction is going to tell us what's coming next because we could pull back all the way to here, I think it'd still be really, really bullish.
Mhm.
And you'll see that when we look at the weekly and the monthly. Let's jump over to the weekly. So here's your weekly. There was that spike this week that, took us to a new high, and then look where we closed, closer to the low.
Mhm.
And the key again, if you look at just the squares, we closed below this half square. So where could we pull back here and still be really bullish? Right to here, right? Would be super bullish.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even back to here would be bullish.
Yep.
So let's see how this correction wants to play out. I do think we have a high. We had good timing. Low to high there was 60 weeks. So I think this high is decent, and now we're gonna see how this consolidation and pullback plays out. Maybe it's something like this, like where we pushed up, pulled back, pushed up, pulled back, but we're doing it all, near the previous highs.
Mhm.
And that's what gave us this last launch. Let's look at the monthly. Monthly's the same story. We failed here at this half square so far. We do have another up month, right? This was your big up bar for November, and then for December we've already made a new high. But if we pull back to 283 and consolidate here and hold this, look at what that shows, right? Old high. We'd be consolidating right on top of these other highs.
Mhm.
And that would mean there's a good chance we're going to get another leg up.
Right.
So coffee, bigger picture, still looks very bullish until we get evidence that shows we're losing support, or that was a spike high and we're reversing hard. Uh, I think we got to look and watch how the correction plays out and see if it gives us good odds that hey we're gonna have another leg higher.
Mhm.
Anything you want to add here on coffee?
No, no, it's good.
O-
Everything's perfect.
Okay. Let's go take a look at our old friend
As
Nat
long as the markets
Gas.
are moving and we know the levels, rest is fairly easy.
Yeah, there it is. Nat Gas. So here's the daily. Here's
Mhm.
what I think we're doing. Right. Remember last week I showed this daily without the or
The
the
bands. Yeah.
grid.
Hmm.
So here's kind of the ranges that we've been in. And we went up, pushed up, made this high, basically double topped with the high, last October, November. And
Hmm.
now we've come down, made a lower high, reversed today. I think we're probably doing a little ABCD, but look where it would take us. Right here, which would be a very bullish setup above this, roughly 280 level of the full square. And
Yeah.
if we do a little correction like that and then
Perfect.
reverse, could be the next big move coming in this thing.
Mhm.
So let's watch and see if we do this ABCD. If we can't even come down that low and complete it, as Barry has said, and we say, if it's not even weak enough to complete the ABC, that shows a lot of strength.
Hmm.
So let's watch and see how that plays out. On a weekly basis, the big news here is we broke this big multi-year triangle. Now we're just sort of consolidating above it, which is positive. Like we don't want to see price come back into it because that would be a sign of weakness. So the next big level on the weekly to get above and sit on top is this full square at 371. But while this is doing this ABCD, it may just, do a bunch of inside bars and chop here for a little bit,
Hmm.
but we'll see. Let's look at the monthly. There's your monthly. Again, it shows a breakout of a multi-year triangle. We have an inside bar so far with the last month. As long as we're staying up and about outside of that original triangle, 488 is the next big level here, which is the half square.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add on that gas?
No, we're good.
All right, now let's go look at fun with geometry. Let's go to gold first.
But that gas shouldn't be taken lightly. That breaking that triangle is a big, huge deal. I mean, we
Huge
don't
deal.
have. I wish we had like bells and whistles like a DJ.
Put them on the charts,
Yeah, have a gong and a drum, and because
like confetti exploding on the charts,
yeah, yeah,
fireworks, stuff
exactly.
like that.
But
No,
that's a big deal. And
no, yeah, those triangles,
we kind of bring
especially
out we bring out everything kind of low key. So I'm not sure if people are getting the idea, but that triangle breaking to the upside, it's kind of a big deal.
on
So
a weekly and monthly, they're huge.
yeah,
They are really big. This is a monthly on gold. We've looked at this chart for a little bit. I just want to show you how the geometry works. Like, look at these three bars, right? Isn't that perfect? The
yeah.
perfect reaction on this circle if you can't get out of it.
Hmm. Hmm.
You kind of hit it, you try and get out, come back in. You hit it, try and get out, come back in. And that's what this will do. And maybe this is what we're going to see from gold, for a couple more months before the correction's over,
Hmm.
where we range, with inside bars here or wide range bars, but we don't really go anywhere. We stay, somewhere in the vicinity of this half square of 2667. But I'm always fascinated by these circles when they do this, man. It blows my mind. You put a circle on a chart, and then the price just adheres to the curvature of it. It's fantastic.
Hmm.
So this is an example that I think is fun to watch, and we'll keep tracking it because when it breaks out of the circle, it's like all this pent up energy gets
Hmm.
projected into the chart and the move. So it pays to watch it, just not for the aesthetics, but because the move you get out of them is pretty fantastic. So we'll see. We'll keep tracking it. And then the last one we want to look at is on crude. Let me find the crude chart. It's sort of working the opposite way. This is the downside of it's holding it back, from these forays it's making up. The bigger thing and the bigger concern for me is if we got to get above this monthly square,
Hmm.
right? Around 7160. Because if we keep getting stuck under that, we could really fall and really catch some, acceleration on the outside of this circle if it gets stuck in there. I mean, you can see how it accelerates when it hits these edges sometimes,
Hmm.
like down here, sort of slipping down. So this is something we want to keep our eye on and want to make sure we're staying on top of and watching.
Yep.
Any other comments on the geometry here?
No, the geometry looks good. I think a sort of a false break would be the ideal where it looks like it's going to go and then reverse. That's my preferred sort of the pattern, but let's see how it works out.
No, that creates the most fuel for these moves when they wrong side the market. There's no
Hmm.
question about it. We've
Hmm.
seen that time and time again. What That's it for me. In terms of the commodities, I think it requires vigilance and patience, and you can't get distracted. You got to stay focused watching these things, even though they're triangulating or even though they're going sideways or correcting or consolidating, because this is what they do. And then when they break, they go. And if
Yeah.
you're not paying attention,
You
you know,
miss, you're chasing.
you're chasing, for me, I can't chase because whenever I chase, I'm like, I can't buy it here. I got to wait for a pullback, and it never pulls back. It just goes. So that's why I pay attention and make sure I'm on it because I don't want to be sitting there going, well, I can't chase it. I can't chase it. I can't chase it. And it keeps going because I've done that enough times to let's put it fill a stadium. Anyway, topic today, Barry. I was when we were talking this week, um, something simple but something powerful that I
Hmm.
think we need to talk about is trend lines.
Yep. Never gets
Uh,
old.
Right. It doesn't get old, but you always put a high value on them and you would talk to me about it and I'm a believer. Um, but not a lot of people do. At least my perception is they don't. They think, oh, you're just, like taking crayons and drawing on paper and what does it mean and how can you use it?
Mhm.
So I think if we spend a few minutes talking about just a simple trend line technique and how you use it and how one can use it to help in trading could be really beneficial. So let me give it back to you so you can show the power of trend lines.
Okay. Can you see that?
Yes, I can.
All right. So, I mean, trend lines have been around forever. It's probably the first thing people learn. At least it was for me.
The first thing they learn how to do incorrectly, what I would say,
Yeah.
because I don't. Have you seen or are you aware of like any courses or educational material on trend lines? I don't see any.
There were back in the day, I remember.
When you did it by hand?
Yeah, yeah. When I did it by hand, and there were guys, putting up some good work. But
Right.
I can't remember now. It's, a long time ago, over 30 years ago. So I can't remember
Sure.
exactly
Sure.
who was, but I can look it up. But anyway, um, of course, back then you didn't have a lot of other things to do, so you had to get really creative with your trend lines.
Right.
Before computers, we were hand charting, right? So once the computers came, we wanted to make everything easy. But nonetheless, just to go through a couple of things, I mean, we all know how to connect. I mean, the beautiful thing is it's just connecting 2 points. And if you look at the 2 points and price action, then, all the geometry and the physics, everything else that goes into that is amazing. Right? The back end of it, kind of like, you're taking any triangulating anything.
Hmm.
Um, but what I want to do is just focus on how to use it easily. For example, the fuse lines that we post,
That'd be good. Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And I wasn't prepared for your question, so I don't have a 30 minute or 4 minute charts ready to go, but I can use it daily just to make the point.
Sure. Same principle, just apply it on a different time frame. That's all.
Exactly, exactly. And the thing is, the idea with fuse lines, it'll come in at a place, for example, like this. We normally, most of the time, we'll get some kind of a corner.
Hmm.
So the fuse lines really focused on the entry side. It really doesn't work on, that's all it is. Entry and exit's all on you. So,
Hmm.
so
That's correct. Yep.
and even worked on it for a long time. Well, entry is great, but where do we get out? And of course, if we have squares and so forth and so on, it makes job a lot easier. But I found after looking at a lot of different ways, where to exit these things, trend lines work like the best. It's super efficient. And what I started doing was, so let's say you're coming off of a corner, we have a lower high, and we know it's bullish, but how far is it going to go? So as fuse lines, we have new ones every day. Could have a couple of new ones during the day.
Hmm.
And what I do is I take the two closest points and I would draw a rough trend line like this one. Can you see that? Can you see the trend line on that?
Yes. Yep. See
Clear
it.
enough? Okay. So my idea is when that breaks, I need to be out. That's really, it's simple
That's
enough.
simple. Right.
It's a little too simple, but that's kind of how it works.
Hmm.
Now, if you have, obviously, if you're doing multiple positions, when you exit here, you want to bring up everything else into break even. Obviously, the break even might be pulled into place before that, but that's really how I use it. And to the other side, let me make it a little bit bigger and make it easier to see.
Hmm.
Is that good? I
Yeah.
can't. Yeah.
You can make the trend line thicker. That might be
Yeah.
helpful.
There you go. How's that?
Yeah, that's good.
Mhm. So just following that logic, if it's to come down, then I would connect the first 2 points, the closest ones. This is the inside bar, so that wouldn't count. Then I would connect the next one, which is right there.
Hmm.
And once when after a while, you don't even need the trend lines because you kind of know where that line would fall if you do enough of them.
Hmm.
But just connecting these first 2 points, you know, so the other thing is the reason you'd want to exit the fuse line trades, break of a trend line, is that's the earliest sign of some kind of weakness. It doesn't mean that's the top of all tops or anything like that. It's just a quick way to pocket the money before you give a whole bunch of it away and with
Right before the correction happens, right?
exactly and trailing
Yeah.
stops and all of that stuff. You give too much away for the amount of work that you do. So I think it's much better to just take it when you
Hmm.
get the chance. And most of the time that works out in your favor. So, and the other second thing is it's the first indication of a trend change. So for the trend change, you want to make the trend lines as tight as you can, and then use the pattern recognition, that you've learned to figure out, how to deal with it next. But so far, I'll just work with this S&P daily, December ES. So not picking and choosing. We're just working with this chart. So
Right.
once you get a low, and we started making higher highs, I just used that, you know, and remember, trend lines are not static. Once you set the initial, you can go on to uh, correct it. So in this case, I would draw a line just this tight, that would be
Hmm.
my trend line. And as we move higher, I would extend it. So in this case, I would extend it up to here, you know.
Right. Hmm.
Now, when I talked about when do it broke the trend line? Well, you really want a couple of bars outside of it with the opposite side getting heavier, like in this
Hmm.
case, when we broke it, you can see the next day was down. Next time it was a outside reversal, right? So
Hmm.
clearly it's starting to tilt. And here you can draw the other thing. I actually I was telling Bevan about this the other day. You can draw a trend line at the lowest bar,
Hmm.
of the trend line, and if that breaks, then you can call that a trend change. So you'd have to break both, right? You'd have to break the low of the bar and the trend line.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And then once you get enough of a point to draw like what I'd call it traditional trend line, then you have this. You connect this point to the low, and you can see the next point held.
Hmm.
We were going higher, and so I'm connecting this low to this low, caught that low, caught that low, and the next day we were outside. Next day we made a low. So this is, that's, and if you just drop a horizontal line there, it'll be a little bit higher. Let me move it up a little bit just to make it all clear.
Hmm.
So we would have to take that out for the trend to change. That's how I really follow when I post the fuse line. This is how I manage the trade from there on. And once you have a consolidation, you like this one, you can do the same. You can start with that low and you connect it to the next one, long as it's moving higher. So in this case, if you follow the same rules, you tapped here, it's moving higher. It actually broke it here, but if you want to follow the trend line idea, you would take the low bar of that consolidation or the
When you
pullback.
right when you broke that, you're out.
Right when you broke that, you're out. No, you'd be actually I'd be out in here, but
That's true. You're the
but but
ninja.
but the trend line would be, I mean, the horizontal line would be the trend change, right? That would tell
Hmm.
me, okay, hey, we have a potential trend change. If you broke that, potential trend change if we broke that. So
Hmm.
we didn't break the first two, but we broke the third one. And not only did we break it, we came back and we retested that resistance above, and we started dropping. So it's the same thing. When you start dropping, I really hug the prices. So you can see I take the first 2 points and I drop the line. And so let's just drop it like this. We went lower, we started consolidating. This is where I would drop that line again, just to know, right?
Hmm.
Right there. So that tells me, okay, potential trend change. But did we get a trend change? No, none of the bars closed above. We poked above. Next day we did outside reversal. Well, we're back again, same game. So you'd start that line, connected to the next possible. I mean, you could almost go here, right there. And your horizontal line would be right there, showing you a trend change. I don't have time to get into bar by bar explanations like I normally do, and then I kill the time. But
Right.
you guys get the idea. You want to, so one is to exit, the other one is to confirm the trend change. And I mean, just knowing that is enough. That should help quite a bit. So you want to really make the trend line tight, snug against whichever point that's available and reasonable, and the more you do, the better you'll get at it. So obviously, initially you'd have this bar, then the next one, and like I said, these don't have to be static. You move them as price action dictates, right? So
Hmm.
here you would do that up there, and there we start to break. So that's where you draw the line, and then I would say, well, that's a trend change, if you break that. So
Hmm.
that's it. That's basically how I do it. And if you guys do the fuse lines, I'll draw the trend lines and show it to you guys, and you guys can do it that way. And these are like on lower time frames, like 5 minute bars. So anyway, it works on
Yeah,
every.
that would be helpful, I think, for people to see that.
Yeah. So I'll do that. I think the time's up. So we can follow up, do another one on these if there's interest. If you guys have other ways of detecting trend and taking profits, you can share in the comments, and we'll look at that and talk about it.
Yeah. So listen, everybody, have a great weekend. We got FOMC next week, so you know the levels. We'll be ready, and we'll be on Twitter. Please like, share, and subscribe to the videos, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right. Thanks, Ben. Good job. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, take care.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye bye.